All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the show. My name is Jess Weber. This is Spiritual Warfare Time, and today's guest is Marlon Marrache. Right? Did I get this? Kind of like a Italian or Spanish? I don't know what it is.
It's a little bit of both, I suppose. Let's see. The last name is originated from Morocco, but I was born and raised in Lima, Peru. So I'm from Peru, bro. Born and raised.
All right. So you are a former internal affair officer, I would have to say. Is that what they would call you?
The majority of us are sergeants that work that assignment. So yeah.
Okay. So how long have you been out? Let's just ask that.
July will be 4 years since I left the beloved Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD.
Okay. All right. So you were there during the George Floyd riots. You were there during COVID.
Yes.
Boy, you were in a lot of this political stuff that happened during the days.
Yeah. Right smack in the middle, bro.
Oh, all right. So let's just back up. Tell me just briefly what your background is all the way up to internal affairs and why you got into it.
You know what? The best way to describe my trip down memory lane would be 24 years of LAPD. I promoted to sergeant in January of 2007. And about a year and a half later, I got involved in the world of discipline, everything that has to do with internal affairs, officers being accused of wrongdoing. And somehow, some way, I did a tour in internal affairs. I did a tour defending cops. So in LAPD, you have the luxury to do both. So I've been on both sides of the table, defending and prosecuting cops. And that's what kind of got the itch. I got the drive to go to law school. And my whole goal was to be a police attorney. I graduated from law school. It's going to be 10 years, man. It's been a while. And you know what? One day I'll land the plane and pass the bar. But until then, I'm enjoying this hosting 2 YouTube channels, right? A podcast. And we'll talk about that later. Consulting, being hired as a subject matter expert involves internal affairs. And I'm also, I used to teach internal affairs up and down the state of California, a couple of outside states I taught as well. And right now I'm been contracted to actually do investigations for small to medium-sized departments. So there you have it, man.
Okay. All right. Let's get right to it. I was looking at your YouTube channel. I was looking at some of your old footage. It was a one that was a year ago.
Okay.
Where this black kid was in a medical room and they were beating the crap out of him. Bunch of cops were talking about it. I just wanted to get, okay, did that guy commit, I want to know, did that guy commit a crime? Did he, what was he?
Yes.
What did he do?
Without a doubt.
Do you remember what he did?
Yeah, he was being, you know what? I know that he was, I don't know what the exact crime was. However, he was already serving his time. I want to say he was being transported from one facility over to another correctional facility, and they had to, get a medical clearance.
Okay.
That's what happened. So I want to say it's a felony. I can tell you it's not a misdemeanor. That I can tell you for a fact.
I'm telling you what the guy had, not the cops. We'll go back up here. I want to talk about, okay, we're talking about you. All right. So the cops are beating the crap out of him. He's resisting, isn't he? Isn't he resisting? He doesn't
which one are we talking about? Because the one that I'm describing to you is the one where they were inside a medical room and there was about 4 or 5 cops just wailing on this male black kid. And unfortunately, so I think what ends up happening is all their body-worn videos are shut off. However, they're able to retrieve through Axon video to get the actual depiction of what happened, because everybody turned theirs off. Now, that is the defendant, the arrestee. My understanding, and again, you're taking me back, I've done a whole bunch of breakdowns and a whole bunch of videos. So forgive me for all the details, but what I do know, and just based on experience, I don't think you're going to be serving time or getting booked and getting through this whole process on a misdemeanor charge. It's probably a felony charge, and he was being transported from one facility over to another, and he had to get medical clearance.
So they're trying to get a medical clearance, but the cops are beating the crap out of him, though.
Well, yes.
Is it because he's not complying, or is he just moving around, or is he not? Is he resisting? That's what I wanted to try to figure out. Why the heck would they beat the crap out of him?
Well, probably the best question is why. And to this very day, we probably don't still know why. But if we can assume and speculate, yeah, there is this culture when you are telling someone to stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting.
Right.
Cops are going to use force. Now, I'll be also the first one to tell you, haven't investigated a whole bunch of use of forces. Let's make sure your audience understands that when you use force, it's ugly. It doesn't look good. Nothing will ever be textbook. It's going to look bad. And sometimes people are going to use force, what you would consider to be excessive, and someone might not. But in this one, yeah, dude, they were way over the top. I think at one point they tried to stick a white cloth in his mouth for him not to, there it is. There's the one. I was going to suggest to you go ahead and show the video. So,
well, I just this is the one I thought was really interesting because you got a lot of different podcasts that are really interesting, like stuff like this, and a lot of, it's almost like you're like the Sean Ryan of the cop industry. You know what I mean? He does the Navy SEALs and he does all the Army. You're the guy that does all the internal stuff with the cops.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
A lot of cops probably don't like you, I would think, right? You're kind of like tattletale guy in a sense.
Yeah, you know what? If I'm not in the business of whether someone likes me or not when it comes to the podcast, but what I will say is if we're going to be like throwing around this buzzword transparency, well, you know what? Come to my channel, you'll get transparency, because guess what? We're not very good to be transparent amongst ourselves. We're good being transparent with the public. I think we do a good job of showing, body worn video, doing these critical incident debriefs that all these police departments have. Here in the state of California, it's the law. It's an assembly bill where I want to say anywhere between 30 to 45 days, you have to let the public know of a critical incident. Of course, critical incidents being OIS's officer involved shootings, because those are the ones that happen the most. So we do a good job telling the public about being transparent, but we're not good. So I took it upon myself to show incidents like that, to say that, hey, we don't need bad actors and we don't need bad apples. As a matter of fact, that particular incident, they got convicted and they got what they deserve. You can't be doing this profession if you decide to do shit like that. That's just my position. And you know what? I will say this, and maybe you haven't heard this quote, but I will throw it out there because we can all agree with this quote. And this is in our culture, is that nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop.
Well, it makes you look bad too. I mean,
horrible. Let's talk about George Floyd. Let me start off by saying, Jess, that we have to keep in mind a lot of things. The most important phrase that I'm about to give you should definitely be flushed out right now to build a good foundation of a conversation. There are over 18,000 agencies throughout the United States, okay? And there's north of 800,000 sworn police officers across the nation. Is there corruption? Yes. Do cops get aggressive and cut corners? Yes. Are they badge heavy? Yes. Are they shady? Yes. Do they commit crimes and act like fucking thugs and criminals in uniforms? Yes. But, however, let's keep in mind that we are talking about a very, very small fraction of the overall population.
Right. But it doesn't help when the media blows it up, making it look like it happens every single day, like the George Floyd thing.
Correct. I've never heard of Minneapolis PD. I've never heard, and I've been around for 28 years in law enforcement. I never knew what Kenosha, Wisconsin was. I don't even know there was a town called Kenosha. I didn't know there was a town called Ferguson in Missouri. And, you have all these pockets of good old boys, type of police departments where we take care of each other and, we have that code of silence and we do what we got to do and rough people up and cut corners and be shady. We got a lot of work to do, which is one of the reasons why we're here having this conversation. But yeah, what happened in Minneapolis, the way it was sensationalized, went across the nation all the way here to the state of California. But what's so sad about all of this, Jess, is that let me kind of frame it this way. If Officer Chaffin was Hispanic, Asian, or maybe even Middle Eastern, I'll put it out that way. And George Floyd was Jess Weber,
yeah,
we wouldn't be having this conversation. So this narrative that the media pushes about race completely takes over to the point that we don't really care about the circumstances. We don't, in some uses of forces and some OISs, they're justified. Some, not all.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you agree that George Floyd overdosed on fentanyl?
According to the facts in the report, yes. And but I will tell you that particular technique that you use your knee to restrain the neck, I was never taught that. I mean, look, my daughter even asked me. I've never even had a conversation with my daughter. She's now, she's 21 years old. At the time, she was, 16, 15, 16 years old in high school. And she's like, Dad, what's going on, right? And I told her, like, no any different than I'm telling you, I wasn't taught any of that technique in the academy or any of my use of force update courses throughout my 24-year career. And certainly there's a lot of agencies in metropolitan areas that don't really teach that particular tactical application to restrain, a suspect. But what I will say, go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, you saw the footage. I mean, to me, when he had his knee on the neck, it didn't look like a lot of pressure. Because when he got off, you can see that, okay, that wasn't that much pressure.
Correct. Okay. Right. And so, but the optics look bad. 1, 2, the fact that you didn't intercede. I mean, look, that particular incident has changed not only policy and the way we conduct law enforcement functions, but it's surely changed the perception. And we're still kind of dealing with the aftermath. And I know you and I kind of talk, look, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, public safety is priority number one. It doesn't matter. Okay. However, when and I'm right here in the middle, when you start talking about defunding the police and you start talking about how, what was that one quote I heard? I heard a quote from the far left that we are agents of racial genocide.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, you know what? Then you leave me with no choice but to move the needle and go to one side of the aisle. But with that being said, it doesn't really matter what side of the aisle you're on politically. You should always think that public safety is number one.
Do you feel like there was more to it? Like Derek and George knew each other. They worked together at a nightclub. It looked like he had a massive Freemason tattoo on his chest, George Floyd. I mean, fake money. I mean, do you feel like there could have been like the cop knew about the fake money and George is screwing up again with our fake money, something?
I think it's a very
shady
cop, if you will, because there's this culture, and I always say that culture dictates how you do police business and how you don't. And so when you have a 19-year veteran as Officer Chaffin, who conducts himself in such a way where, everybody knows that's not the first time he's done something like that. That's just the first time where someone actually died in custody death, right? And so what you start realizing is that, maybe at the first time, because again, he's a 19-year veteran and they must have known each other. Minneapolis is not that big. I don't know what the square quadrant, the square miles, if you will, of that town, of that city, but it's probably not that big. And so people kind of know each other, right? If you patrol the streets in a very tight community like Minneapolis, I don't think there's many Minnesotans that are coming to commit violent crimes inside Minneapolis. My thinking is that if there is these part one crimes, whether it's kidnapping, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, and murder, it's kind of happening within your own little community. So when you're a cop and you're out there, you kind of know everybody. You go get that cup of coffee, probably going to see someone that there's this saying, today's victim is tomorrow's suspect. You might be victimized today, and then tomorrow you might end up, committing a violent crime. So my point is that they have to have known each other. And again, I'm speculating and assuming here. Yeah. But that's not the first time Officer Soffin's done stuff like that. And you want to talk about culture and leadership, bro, you don't think the sergeant knew you're not going to think that all the other lieutenants, captains, maybe even if they have a deputy chief, I don't know what their org chart is like.
Right.
But I cannot sit here and just wonder whether or not the chief didn't know that this is how he handles police business. I'm gonna call bullshit on that, bro. I'm gonna say he's been doing that for quite some time.
But did we agree? Didn't we just agree that his knee wasn't that much pressure on the neck? Or do you believe crushing?
No, we did agree on that. What I'm saying is that particular technique, right, does have some connection to what happened, the aftermath, the outcome of him dying. I get it. The autopsy report, the guy was high, high as a kite. I get all that part. What I'm saying is that particular technique can cause injury. In other words, when you do an analysis on a use of force, there's this component that we talk about that we fully have, a big talk about is who creates the exigency, who creates the peril. So there are times where police officers will create the exigency. And guess what? We have to hold you accountable for doing so. And sometimes the suspect, more times than often, creates that exigency. You know what I'm saying? So if I pull you over, I conduct a traffic stop and I'm asking for your driver's license and you're telling me F off, I'm not going to give my driver's license. And then all of a sudden, as I'm at the door and I see in plain view, maybe a knife or maybe a weapon. And I'm like, you know what? Get out of the car. Now you got a weapon, right? If he grabs my arm, throws it, and he puts it on driving, takes off, guess what? The suspect created the exigency, not me.
All right.
It's the suspect.
Let me ask you this. All right. So you pull me over and say, let me see your thing. And you see those videos where people are like, nah, I'm not showing you anything. F you. What are you going to detain me? And then the window's only down this high, low.
Right.
Can I actually do that? Can I actually say F you? And I'm not.
Well, I'm going to give you the best. The only thing I learned in law school is the best answer I always heard. It depends.
Well, say he pulled me over. He says, my light's out.
What I will say is this: in the wonderful state of Florida, which is just awesome, I guess it's a beautiful state, but they don't play around. And what I mean by that is when you do go 50 over a 35-mile-per-hour zone, there's a speeding violation, or let's just take an infraction. It's all an infraction. It's just a moving violation.
Okay.
And then when I come up to your window and I ask you, sir, ma'am, the reason why I pulled you over, you know what? I don't want to talk to you. What's the first thing they say? Well, give me a sergeant. Okay. Got it. I want a sergeant. Well, that doesn't mean I go on timeout and wait for my sergeant. No, I got to still conduct an investigation, right? So there's no timeout. There's no 20-second timeout, nothing like that. Okay. And so I keep asking you, give me your driver's license. No, I'm not going to give you your driver's license. Right. I'm going to ask you one more time. In the academy, you used to teach us ATD, the acronym: ask, tell, and do. Some is ask, tell, and make. Man, can you please give me your driver's license? Because I already asked you. Can I see your driver's license? No. Would you please show me your driver's license? No. Okay. I'm telling you, give me your driver's license. No.
Right.
What you have done at that particular moment is turned an infraction into a misdemeanor arrest that has been committed in my presence, which means that now all bets are off, because now I have to effect an arrest, which is one of the three general founding father policies of use of force. You use force to overcome resistance, you use force to prevent an escape, and you use force to effect an arrest. So guess what? I have to effect an arrest because you just told me you're not going to give me your driver's license. So that's when you go on YouTube and you see, by any means necessary, if I have to bash your window and go in there, take off your seatbelt and yank you out of the car, guess what? I am legally and justified in doing so. Now, it's not going to look good.
Yeah.
It's not going to look good at all. And I want to say that there's a lot of Midwestern states that follow Florida. So, Florida's good to go, bro.
While you break the window and try to rip me out, can you punch me if I'm trying to struggle with you? Can you hit me and stuff like that?
Uh, what I will say, Jess, is this: when you use any tactic to effect an arrest, prevent an escape, or overcome resistance,
Yeah.
you can deviate from your tactics, policy, and procedures, whatever you were taught.
Okay.
However, that deviation could be substantial. So your measurement of substantiability is completely different than mine, right? So that's up to the adjudicators. However, when you do substantially deviate, can you articulate it? Can you justify it? So if I can justify me punching you,
Yeah.
and you know what? If that explanation is legitimate, reasonable, and equitable enough for me to believe that, hey, under these circumstances, you had to do this, that's in policy. If not, then it's out of policy.
Okay. All right. Well, I just because you see so many videos where you're like, wait, do they have rights to do that? Like even like nowadays, you got illegal immigrants. They're not saying anything. And it's like, what's going on? And I guess they're being told not to say anything. So it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean,
Yeah. The ICE operations and everything that's going on. I'd be the first one to tell you. And of course, I'm very pro cop, pro law enforcement. Right. That's been my profession that LAPD has afforded me so much success. But I will say that we could have done completely different, completely different, and unfortunately, when you have a mandate that, hey, we want to capture, apprehend as many as possible. And there's this argument about, well, overstaying your visa, coming in the country illegally is a federal infraction. It's not a crime. There's arguments to be made, in every angle possible. But and here's my thinking, just from experience, is when you are conducting an operation, or when you're getting ready to conduct an operation to go after some violent criminals that don't belong in this country, you might want to be very incognito, very clandestine, maybe, use all the resources necessary, get the drones and start filming and recording the quadrant around that particular house. Okay, good. You know what? This is where they live. Okay, let's find out where their friends, who are the closest family. Okay, cool. This is okay. Now we have tactically, how are we going to deploy? And how are we going to apprehend and take this guy into custody?
Well, the problem with ICE is that they already know where they're going. I mean, people are finding out where they're going for some reason.
Right. Well, that's the people. I'm talking about just ICE, me and you right now. We are assigned to this case of this guy that's wanted for murder, 15 murders, and we let him in through the border.
Right.
Okay. And we're working up. That's what we call the workup. So we're working up the location. We're working him up. We know where they live. We know where they hang out. We know their route. We know their family, friends, hangouts. We know everything. And here's where politics sucks. Because now that we know everything and we're ICE and I'm the supervisor, okay, cool. They're in the city of, well, let's pick a liberal city that hates ICE. Let's go with San Francisco. Perfect example. So now I'm the supervisor. I call San Francisco PD and the watch commander and say, hey, this is Special Agent Supervisor Marrache. Look, tomorrow at 6 a.m, we're going to be at Walk and Don't Walk, and we're going to be taking this suspect that's wanted for like 8 murders that's here illegally. Here's the information. What we would like is your help. We would like your assistance. Can you please send us 2 uniform units so they can be assigned as the chase car? Because what we're going to do is we're going to follow them out of the house and get them to do a takedown. Not my Suburbans, not my guys in jeans and with masks, none of us. We're going to have the uniform officers conduct a traffic stop far away from the house in a location where we feel we can deploy tactically, safely, and get it done, right? But we don't do that. And so what ends up happening is the total opposite.
Well, you got police departments that don't want to help ICE. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah, exactly. So what they'll do is they'll hang up the phone and say, you know what? sorry, we're a sanctuary city. We can't help you out. Have a nice day. Click.
Right.
That's
and then
the
they
problem.
go in. That's why, and that's why it's a big public display. And speaking of those ICE protests, and that one girl that got killed when the cop almost hit her or whatever.
Renee Good.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that situation? And should that cop be prosecuted?
You know what? Me personally, I want to wait until the agent himself or the department releases his cell phone video. He has cell phone video and he recorded. So that's part of the evidence. It's part of the process.
Right.
So I think we're very quick to, do a knee-jerk reaction and say, oh my God, this guy's a murderer. Let's just, hang him and call it a day. Which, by the way, Jess, I also want to make sure your audience knows that, look, the loss of life is a tragedy in it itself.
Yeah.
1000%. No cop, and thank God I've never been involved in an OIS, but no cop, I can't even imagine having to live knowing that it took someone's life. So I want to make sure. However, there's no winning. It's not about winning. It's not about, it's about right and wrong. It's about justification or not. I get that you have a whole process to go through, but we have to also know that the families, both, right? The deceased family and the cop's family are both going through major, major tragedies. So
no, I get that, but I mean, I've seen the video from his angle and two other angles, and it's just, I mean, I was surprised how fast he is once the car struck him. You're like, that's pretty impressive. But was she in the wrong of leaving when the ICE agent said, stop, you're under arrest?
Yeah, well, there is this, again, it all depends on the circumstances. You can quote me on this. I want to say the average OIS is less than 2 seconds. So, I'm being judged by my actions and maybe even criminally charged for something that I decided to do in less than 2 seconds. There is this case that just came out of the Supreme Court, called Barnes v. Felix, which basically says that you don't have to look. The decision of the Supreme Court, they pretty much threw it back to the lower courts and say, look, you can't just analyze, and that was an OIS. I want to say it happened in Texas, right outside of Houston, and you can look it up, Barnes, Barnes v. Felix. The driver had tolling violations, a whole bunch. And so he pulls him over in a highway, right next to how they have those cement block that divides the freeway? Yeah. Like real low cemented, divider. And so the officer gets out of his car and drives up. Mind you, there's body worn video until this very day. It hasn't been released, and it's been 3 or 4 years. Anyways, he gets to the car and the door is open and he says, can I see your driver's license? All that stuff. And of course they're resisting. No, I'm not going to give you this, and that. And the driver starts reaching and looking, at the passenger seat. And he's like, stop, stop moving, stop resisting. And all of a sudden he puts it on drive and takes off. At the time that he takes off, the cop fires a couple of rounds, person dies. Right. Yeah. And so that made it all the way to the Supreme Court to say that you cannot just analyze, quote unquote, the moment of threat. You have to take what we call the totality of the circumstances. But what does that mean? Does that mean that we go back from the beginning of the traffic stop or even before that? We don't know. And that today is still being, analyzed, and we don't really have answers. So I bring that up to say that in this Renee Good shooting, perhaps, maybe, don't quote me on this, they might start looking at that totality of all the circumstances as opposed to the quote unquote moment of threat.
I just, for some reason, it seems like criminals and people that want to break the law are being empowered, that they're the ones being protected because maybe they had a bad life and whatever. And they, and it's like, I'm starting to get sick of that. I would never run from the law. I would never say F you to the cop. I would never, resist or whatever, or run away or get in a car chase. But the second I feel like someone does that, you're playing with fire.
You know what, Jess, here we are in 2026. I say this a lot. I want to say the image and the authority of a police officer today, right now in our society, is completely watered down. Bro, when I was a cop back in 1999 in the streets, dude, when I went to 7-Eleven and to go get a cup of coffee, people will open up the doors for me and say, sir, hey, thank you. I remember when I was a kid and I came here in 1980, I'm giving out my age. I was a young kid at 12. So I've been here for a couple of decades. And we used to have this image of a cop like, wow, like, oh shit. Like if I did something wrong, this cop is going to just fucking tune me up or whatever.
Right.
Or you can come up to a cop and say, sir, man, do you have a baseball card? And they will, out of their pocket, they pull out and give you a baseball card. And so today, there are people out there no any different than this situation. And again, I don't want to pass judgment on what happened here in the ICE shooting. I'm just speaking from a 30,000 foot view about how we see law enforcement. There are people out there that are evil, bro. They want to kill and ambush cops.
Yeah.
Without not even thinking about it. That's their agenda. That's how much hatred they have towards law enforcement. But what I always say is, you know what? One day you're going to call 911 and guess who's coming to help you?
And why do you think the cops are so quick to pull the trigger? Because they got so much hate against them. And then everyone is against the cop. And then the cop goes to jail. And it's like, what? Yeah. You're going to let the criminal win? And the criminal gets to sue the department, clears you guys out, and gets $2 million, $10 million, and he's living large somewhere else.
Yep.
Under an identity or something.
Yep. Welcome to our wonderful criminal justice system, right?
So then you're saying and then what makes it, how do you make it tougher? How would you make a department tougher where it says, do the crime, prepare to die? You know what I mean? Like really tough.
Yeah. Very good question. I think it's just politics. We sensationalize incidents and forget about the circumstances. That's what I would change. Look, if you decide to drop F-bombs and just treat a cop like they're just, a piece of shit, like I don't care, then there's consequences. I think we have to remind that we need leaders in police departments. And again, we have a lot of work to do. I mean, I already told you there's over 18,000 agencies throughout the United States. So not all agencies are going to stand up in front of the community and say, hey, look, you cannot run from the cops. When a cop tells you, I want to see your driver's license, take some accountability. The cop's not making shit up that you went 65 or over 35 mile per hour zone. Right. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he kind of knows, or she knows, that you ran that stop sign or you ran that light. And so we don't take accountability whatsoever. We meaning, citizens, the community.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate with these criminals that are just getting away with murder almost, and then getting bailed out and all that. Tell me, moving on to different, another thing. What did you think of the Charlie Kirk shooting? Do you feel like, you've been around weapons. They say it's a 30-06. What do you think happened there? You have any thoughts on that?
Not much, besides the fact that it was just devastating.
Right.
Just devastating. About the only thought I have is, how do you let someone, get on campus with a high power rifle or weapon, I should say, and have no security measures? That's failure. I would hate to be the county in that state of Utah, and I would hate to be the college campus security, law enforcement agency. I don't know if I can live with that for the rest of my life. That to me, just, I was in awe. Like, wow. No any different than what happened in Butler, right? With the president. Same thing. How can you look, really? We're going to work in silos and you're going to be underneath the actual hangar or, the warehouse where, he went up with, the guy's walking with a high power rifle up to the roof and no one caught it but the snipers from across.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. That's all amateur work, bro. I mean, the way I see it, and this is just me kind of flexing. I come from an agency, what I consider to be D1 All-American product. I am an SEC type of guy. That's me. I'm SEC all the way. I'm in Alabama, Notre Dame. I'm that national champion type of quality police agency and police officer. That's me. So when you get this kind of amateur type of work from people, no any different than the Charlie Kirk assassination, then that's just devastating. Look at that. There you have it. Those are your consequences. We could have caught that had we would have been better at our job.
Do you feel like there's something bigger going on than just some random kid with a gun, or something that you guys, it's way above your pay grade because it's world controlled? And they are manipulating. They're using weapons with different calibers. They can switch out like that. And you're looking for a 9mm, but really, if you do find the gun, it says 40 on it. And or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, what I will say is not from that particular level. Let's take politics and just from a worldwide point of view. There's a lot going on right now, brother. And what I'm afraid of is, to your question, do I think there's something else is going to happen or what's going on? Yeah. Oh, yeah. There is a strong population here in California. I live in Los Angeles, of Iranians, right? And there's a strong population of Israel, not just in West Los Angeles, of, Jewish community here is, strong, bro. Strong. I would hate, in addition to that, let's talk about Dearborn, Michigan, where it's just infested, with Muslims. So do I feel like, and these people are, they have made it very clear that we don't like Americans.
Right.
In some countries, say not only we like Americans, we just don't like Jewish people either. And so I came to wonder, like, well, if you're here, then why the fuck are you here then? You know what? Leave. Right. That's a simple answer, but there are people that are so radical in their own minds that, I think something bad is going to happen, bro.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you got the whole, media that pumps it out and makes it bigger and bigger. And it's all against you guys. Everything is against you. You got to remember that.
Yes.
So how you have no protection. The police have no protection whatsoever.
Nope.
And I know that, and then with your job with internal affairs, you're investigating your own people, but
yes.
But it just does not help with the media sensationalizing everything that you guys do. And it's like,
there's no winning. Yeah. So let me kind of fill in the gaps for you. Yeah. Let me fill in the gaps. Yeah. If I can add into all that is, when it comes to the internal affairs function, which is one of many reasons why I decided to do this podcast, and I'm very proud of my show. Here we are, December of 2025, just last December, we hit 2 million on YouTube. I'm sorry, 1.5 million, and now we're at 1.8. So it's growing. And so I'm blessed because in law enforcement, in our culture, we don't talk about internal affairs. It's very hush hush. It's very taboo. And where we lose, right? If we're going to talk about wins and losses, where we lose the most is both with the community and amongst ourselves. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people watch. This is where the media comes in. Is there's a lot of shows and there's a lot of movies that depict internal affairs to be this evil entity within law enforcement, right? And so when you catch a bad cop, a bad actor or a dirty cop, if you're liked, then the chief is just going to kind of sweep it under the rug. But if you're not liked, then they're going to hammer you and get rid of you. And so you give the public perception that we kind of take care of our own. There's this code of silence. So there's no winning there whatsoever. And then amongst us, the rank and file, there's this double standard. Well, wait a minute, you're a chief or you're a captain and you did you got caught on a DUI and yeah, well, you didn't get suspended, but hey, I'm a 3-year officer and I get a DUI and I got to take suspension days. I've been kept in the dark. No one told me what was going on for about a year. The punishment's really the process. It's not even the penalty, but you got off free, man. So there really isn't no winning from any lens when it comes to disciplinary matters as it relates to law enforcement. But I got to tell you, don't believe what the shows, and these movies depict about the police, because it's just going to taint you to think that, hey, we kind of take care of our own. And even if I make a complaint, like let's just say you and I right now, I don't know, we're at a bar with our wives and here comes these 2 cops that were off duty. They start getting drunk and they start being, start hitting on our wives and act all rude and disrespectful. And then we decide the next day to go to the front lobby to make a complaint against these 2 cops. Hey, this is what they were doing. Here's video. So look,
Right.
This guy was being a total, making advances on my wife, totally crossed the line, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if that cop is liked and is decorated within the department, has a good reputation, chances are nothing's going to happen. Or if he's not liked, then they're going to hammer him. So then you ask yourself, well, okay, you're drunk as hell, bro. I mean, knock it off. Don't act that way next time.
But
Who knows?
if I go into the police station to report this, wouldn't I get a guy like you?
You would get a guy like me, but because of all you see on TV and all you hear about and all you see on YouTube and all you see on every social media platform, you come to me, even though as nice as I am, right, as respectful and professional as I am, in the back of your mind, as a citizen, you're going to think to yourself, I'm not going to get a fair shot at this. This sergeant's just going to go through the motions. And regardless of what I complain about, nothing's going to happen to that cop.
All right. So tell me, is there any interesting cases that you've had that you turned in some cops, they were doing some bad things, they went to jail forever, maybe a murder, killing their own cop, their own guy, something right out of
I don't have something like wow and sensationalized like that. But what I will say is this, Jess. One of the biggest challenges that I've been having lately is when we accuse cops of being liars. So if you're being alleged with a false statement, we call that untruthfulness or dishonesty. We as investigators in internal affairs don't have the experience, the talent, and the skill set, or even the art to get that confession to say that, yeah, you know what? You're lying here. We're not good at that. What we do now as a common practice is we have this interrogation, this interview, this compelled interview, because I'm ordering you to tell me what happened in the traffic stop. And I have this feeling as an investigator that, you're kind of misrepresenting some facts, maybe a little misleading. And then all of a sudden I don't ask all the questions. And then I turn in, I'm done with that compelled interview. I turn in my summary investigation. I turn in all the audio, the transcripts, and the whole 9. And here it is at the adjudication level, and they're roundtabling it. And somebody decides to just arbitrarily say, you know what? I think Jess and Marlon are lying. So go ahead and, charge them with an allegation of dishonesty, and we're going to fire them.
Wow.
And so here you are, and here at the 364th day, about almost a year later, we get served with a complaint that's got a dishonesty allegation, and you're about to lose your job. And so I can't pinpoint one particular, but I've been hired to, as a subject matter expert, to pretty much grab this investigation, this completed internal affairs investigation, and with a fine-tooth comb, go through every single allegation to ensure that if we're going to be calling one of your colleagues a liar, you better get this one right. Because the minute that we decide to ring that bell and process him or her for termination, their entire life is shattered. You've tarnished them, their reputation. They're isolated. They're ostracized. They're in the island all by themselves while they're waiting around for this whole process. And I'm here to tell you that we don't do it the right way. That's been my challenge.
Okay. I want to go back to I don't know. I know you guys in LA, you always have this kind of issue.
Yeah.
This is not in LA, this is New York, but you guys have a lot of these cars taking over downtown LA or wherever.
Street racing. The little,
yeah. No, this is where people get hit. How come you guys are not in here right away? Or do you guys just let it go? You just let it go? Because I mean, these last a long time.
Man, yeah, this is again, man, this is the challenge of our, criminal justice system. Hey, man, a lot of agencies, big time agencies, either probably don't have the resources to go and do a major task force and do a takedown.
Yeah.
1, 2, it's property crime. Look, you're depicting someone doing donuts.
People die during this.
Yes, that is true. I was going to get to that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that when you conduct this kind of fun, operation, because everybody thinks it's fun. Oh my God, let's fucking, video this. Is cool. Look, they're fucking doing donuts and peeling out and this and that. Well, if they end up hitting a pole or another car, it's a property crime. Big deal. Right. However, it's gotten to the point where, there's some fatal, people have died in this, so you should take it more serious. Now, does that happen all the time? Like every night? No, but I'm with you, brother. You need to enforce this and come up with a complete task force. So this is where politics kind of play also. You have, you can do a multi-jurisdictional, multifunctional task force where you have the city department along with the state, along with Department of Motor Vehicles, along with the feds, right? So you have 4 entities that you can form a task force that when we go and do a takedown, and by the way, it's going to take in an operation like this, probably maybe, I want to say 4 or 5 patrol cars, right? Patrol vehicles with personnel.
Yeah.
Because we're going to, it's a major operation. And so having all these resources to do it the right way, departments don't do it. And if they ask for help, we talked about it already. Some help and some don't. What
about, most of these times these cars stolen? Are these usually stolen cars or?
To my knowledge, no. And I've done some, back in my days, I've responded to a couple of street racing days, but I tell you what, man, I can find, to answer your question, not that I'm aware of whether they're stolen.
So if you get the license plate, you could arrest the guy next day, right? Could you do that?
Yeah, 100. Yeah, of course, 100%. You can do that. That's not a misdemeanor crime, dude. That's like a felony. And again, this all depends on your statutes, if the criminal statutes in your own city. Is doing this type of act a misdemeanor, a wobbler, or just a straight felony? If it's a felony, to your point, we can probably wait. If it's a misdemeanor, how much resources and efforts, and are you going to risk your lives to go arrest people for misdemeanor arrest? I don't know. So there's a lot of thought into this.
And you got no cash bail, so they get out right away.
And they get exactly. That's the other, downfall.
I just don't understand why people would want to rack up felonies on their profile. It's almost like they're okay with it. I would think this shows up in a job interview, right? Or no? Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. But that goes with looting too, right? If you're going to go do looting and what's that? A smash and grab?
Yeah.
They don't care, bro. They know that you're not going to get prosecuted.
Right. But it's still on your record though.
Hey man, they're not you and I. I guess we don't care when we're 20 years old, right?
It's so mind-boggling that
look, if you're 20 years old and you're doing that, and I don't know, 22, 23 years old, you decide to become a cop.
Yeah. I've talked to gang members many times online when I do a different type of podcast, and they make it seem like it is their life. This is their life. This is the way of life.
That's what they do.
Okay, so you guys got to know where these gangsters are. You got to know what they're doing, what hoods they're in, what they're dealing with. Yeah. You got to separate them. They are just, they want to kill each other. You know, they killed Uncle Toey or whatever. Now we got to get them back. We got to, they own the corner. No one owns the corner of the street. You know what I mean? Like, how do you end gang violence? It's almost like they want gang violence for some reason.
True, but it is nothing. And I would love for your audience to tune in to one of my sections of the Marlon Marrache show, Truth Behind the Badge, where I bring in guests that talk about how violent was the city of Los Angeles between the mid 1980s to the mid 1990s. Back in 1994, 1995, Rampart alone, just the city of Rampart, just 6.5 square miles, there was over 168 homicides within that quadrant. 168 in 1 year alone. And it was all gang related, 100%. When you show up to work in 1994 and 1995 at Rampart and other parts in South LA, dude, you're responding from one homicide scene to another. In the early 90s, there was a declaration of war against gangs and war against drugs. So you compare that to now, nothing. I'd rather have them do all that street, donut racing and do all that than killing each other like they were doing back in the days. So I don't think LA alone, the city of Los Angeles in 1990, 1991, and 1992, over 1,000 homicides each year. I think today you're looking at maybe 300 citywide for the whole year. So it's nowhere near as violent as it was, brother, at all.
All right. I mean, but I feel sorry for these gangsters because they can't get out. They say they cannot get out of the gang. It's forbidden.
You know what, Jess, that it has decades. You're right. It's a subculture within its own culture where they feel as if there's nothing to look forward to.
Nothing. They have,
now we're talking about socioeconomics. I mean, we can get into absent father, lack of parenting. It's what I will say. It's gotten a little bit better. I guess that's the best way to frame it compared to, the 90s where we had the crack cocaine era. Mom was either prostituting or selling drugs. Dad was either a major gangster fighting rival gangs and ends up and going to prison. And guess who suffers the most? It's the kids. So
I just feel bad for them. I mean, with all the information we know today, you would think just get out of there. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Let me tell me about this consulting. What do you consult with other police departments?
Thanks for the plug. So I have a couple of contracts with some law enforcement agencies to conduct investigations on their behalf. So I am the IA guy. It's me. That's one of my services that I offer. The other one is what we talked about, that what I call the signature biopsy. So if you are a cop and you're facing termination, well, let me back up. If you actually got terminated and you're going through arbitration or the appeal process and you're preparing for an arbitration hearing or any administrative appeal hearing, get a hold of me so I can go through your entire internal investigation. And I'll be the first one to tell you, that this is a fair, reasonable, equitable investigation, or it's got more holes than Swiss cheese and the department did you wrong. They got this one wrong. So, and then last but not least, any speaking engagements, right? I teach this stuff. That's me, man. I love doing this stuff. I think it's very important service.
Obviously your podcast
is kicking ass, bro. The podcast, Marlon Marrache show. The reason why I rebranded from the IA Guy, a police podcast, to the Marlon Marrache show is because I wanted to expand my conversations about law enforcement, like the conversations we're having now. I talked to you a little bit about how violent the city of Los Angeles. That's a project where I have guests come in, old school guests to come in and talk about that. And just different stuff that's going on, viral incidents, maybe some politics, about police, anything that has to do with police, not just internal affairs. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm going to play your 2-minute Trust the Internal Affairs Expert here video as we get out of here. But thanks for coming on and informing us about the internal affairs. What's going on in this world.
Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it.
You got it. Take it easy, brother.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Marlon Marrache, retired LAPD police sergeant with 25 years on the job, including more than 15 years deep in internal affairs as a disciplinary specialist. After seeing every angle of the process, the good, the tough, and everything in between, I'm proud to announce that Blue Consulting Inc. is now Marrache Consulting and Investigations Incorporated. We bring independent, no-nonsense expertise to police departments, unions, officers, legal teams across the country to help you balance real accountability with real fairness. First, if you ever decide to outsource your internal affairs investigation of alleged misconduct, we will investigate them on your behalf. We handle every case thoroughly, objectively, and always with full respect for officers' rights. Second, our signature audit biopsy of completed internal affairs cases. Look, think of it as a forensic deep dive. We spot the strengths, right? We fix the gaps and turn good investigations into bulletproof ones. And last but not least, we love this part: dynamic keynotes, workshops, and custom training on every corner of police disciplinary proceedings. They range from use of force investigations, officer-involved shooting investigations, to peace officers' Bill of Rights, and community trust. The bottom line is, whether you need an outside set of eyes, a fresh review of past cases, or training that actually sticks, Marrache Consulting and Investigations Inc. brings you the insider edge only decades on the streets can give. So here it is. If you're ready to level up your internal affairs game or book a speaking slot, head to www.marracheconsulting.com or reach out today and let's talk. Thank you so much. Looking forward to working with you.